it blew my mind how many times people say, "Oh, I didn't know that about you," or "I didn't know that made you nervous," or "I didn't know that was a challenge for you." And I'm sitting
Mhm.
there thinking, "You guys have worked together for years. How do you not know this?" And
Mhm.
what they
But it
said to me,
happens.
yeah, it does happen because we get so busy, right? And that's where I see the lazy leadership, totally unintentional, but we dive so deep into what we're trying to execute that we don't think about the people side.
Welcome to Be Bold Branding, where we discuss the power of differentiating yourself through your own unique story and standout personal brand.
Has leadership gotten downright lazy? Today's guest, Julie Holunga, is a leadership advisor who is on a mission to rid the world of lazy leadership. I love that idea. She works with teams and leaders specializing in the careers of female leaders. She's known for her exclusive trusted voice paradigm, which increases effective communications, makes conflict constructive, and develops leaders who lead with integrity.
Julie, welcome to Be Bold Branding.
Thank you, Michael. I'm really excited to be here with both of you.
We're
Yes,
excited to have you,
we're
Julie.
very excited to have you on the show. And so let's just get right to it here. About 6 questions that'll help us learn a little bit more about you. Who or what influenced you the most when it relates to what you're doing now?
Sure. Well, I grew up overseas in Paris, New Delhi, and Hong Kong, and spent some pretty formative years in going to school and living really immersed in those cultures. And it really piqued my curiosity in people and understanding what makes them tick. And I have a lot of friends who make fun of me because we'll be skiing and sitting on the chairlift and I'll ask all these questions and people say, "Why do you keep asking us all these questions?" But it's just how my brain works. So I know that living overseas and having that great opportunity, although I might not have realized it then, to really understand different cultures, people are all different, and it fascinates me. And I find myself wanting to know more and more about people, how they got to where they are and what makes them excited about what they're doing right now. And I'm
Mhm.
just always fascinated by people who just say that they love what they're doing and they're so energized each morning when they wake up, because I don't think that's the norm.
We couldn't agree more, and it's one of the things we like at BrandFace so much is just seeing how people came to do what they do
Mhm.
today,
That
and
background.
that background, that life background that just permeated everything
Yeah.
that they did, decisions that they made, and opportunities that came their way.
And I actually watched your TEDx talk before the podcast, Julie. You did a fantastic job. And you did tell the story about, moving to France and you couldn't speak any French, and how language is so, so important in that. And so really enjoyed that. So I'd encourage everybody to check that out. Check out Julie's TEDx talk. So the next question for you, Julie, is what is the one thing you want to be known for in the leadership coaching space?
Yeah. So the one thing that I want to be known for is this idea of away from lazy leadership, as you mentioned, and towards deliberate leadership. So really being thoughtful of every conversation, every interaction that people are having, that they're aware of when they're stepping into maybe a hard conversation or there's some conflict going on, and not either running away, which many of us do, and avoid it, but really stepping into it purposefully and being thoughtful about what does the other person need to hear or know or understand. And I talk about what I created, the titanium rule, which is built on the golden rule. And the titanium rule is speak to others the way they want and need to be spoken to. So getting out of our own way of this is what I need to say and I need you to hear me, but flipping that and thinking, okay, what do you need to hear, or how do you need to hear the message that I'm saying? So I really think if
Mhm.
people could practice that every day, we would be in a much calmer world.
Oh, I agree with that too. Another great takeaway, for sure.
It
That's
is.
something that took me. I'm still practicing it, Julie. It took me a long time to figure that out. you can get results out of people if you speak to them correctly. I don't think anybody gets up every day wanting to mess things up or to cause problems. I
That's
think we all
right.
get up
That's right.
wanting to do the best we can. And but sometimes when mistakes are made, if you don't handle those correctly, you haven't created a positive transformation in somebody. You've really just made them mad.
That's true.
So
That's true.
true.
Or made yourself look small. I think that's
Yeah.
what I took away from your TEDx talk a lot, is to like stop using the words only,
Right.
just, maybe. Yeah, I think you listed a couple more, but those really stood out to me because I think, especially as women in the workplace, we still kind of do that. We still kowtow, right?
Mhm.
Absolutely. Right. And we oftentimes it's unintentional. We're not trying to put ourselves lower or play small, but it's the way
Right.
it comes out when we're being lazy.
That's not to belabor that, but it's something for me as a male and a business owner. I always like most of the people I work around are females. Like it always has been. And I was raised in between sisters by a single mother. I have daughters. I'm comfortable around females. But as I get older, I learned that even though I work good with them and they tend to work good with me, I still don't handle things correctly. I still handle things like a man sometimes, you know what I mean? It's like, you think about it and like, well, okay, that might have some people have left the organization in years past because I didn't handle the situation right more than they didn't. So that's interesting. Yeah.
Well, but Michael, you're taking the right steps, right? You're aware of it, you're cognizant. And that's that point of being deliberate, right? Like your first thought or your first reaction doesn't have to be your last.
Yeah. Well put.
Oh, I like that.
Well
There's
put.
a takeaway for you.
Yeah. So number 3, what are the warning signs that somebody needs your services? We actually were probably just talking about a few of them. But.
Right. Well, certainly either for yourself or someone on your team, you want to invest in someone, and because you see that they like you can't survive without them. A lot of times I get that phone call of, I got 2 people on my team and they cannot leave. So what do I got to do? So it's either that side of investment in them. And I had a client this morning say to me, she made an introduction to a leader who's struggling a little bit. And she said, we position this as a gift. And I loved how she said that, because it's truly the gift of time, the gift of stepping away, right? And really focusing on yourself. So it's either someone who calls and says they have someone on their team they want to invest in, or the individual who says, look, I'm leading a team. Maybe it's the first time I'm leading a team, or it's the first time I've led a team this big, or we are going through a big complex merger, or there's some change going on. And I want that support. I want that outside person who's completely unbiased, who can be my sounding board to help through these situations. A lot of times I get those calls because people are saying, I want my team to really be optimized. How do I do that? I don't even know what that looks like. What do I need to do as a leader? Like Michael, to what you were saying of, maybe I didn't handle that situation correctly, but I want to be the best I can be. And I want my team to really be working at their peaks. Or maybe there are 2 teams that need to work together really well. And if that's not happening, what do we do? What do we need to do? And oftentimes they don't know what the answer is, but they just know that something needs to change, that it's not quite right. Or maybe they're too stressed, or they're working and they feel that they're inefficient, right? And they're spending too much time in the weeds and not stepping back enough to think about what they really want.
Like what you're hearing? Hit that subscribe button and learn how you can change how you're seen and charge what you're worth.
Let's dig a little deeper into that, Julie. So specifically, like, you mentioned all the warning signs. Who are the people behind those warning signs? Like, who are you best suited to serve in what you do?
Sure. So they're typically leading either a project or people. So some people, like when you're leading a project, you have dotted line people coming into you, but they don't have to really report or respond to you. So that's a really hard situation. Or you're leading a team. So it's one of those 2 things. And or someone who is responsible for professional development within the firm. So that might be someone within HR, it might be someone within talent development who's responsible for the success of their people. Sometimes it may be a business unit lead who, like I described to you, two teams. I had a client a couple of years ago call me and say, we have these two teams. They like each other just fine as people, but they don't share information. They're not collaborative. They're not innovative together. And if these two teams don't get along, the company will fold. They literally see it that way. It's a global, 4,000, 5,000 employees. If the leaders of these two teams don't get along and don't see opportunities and create opportunities together, we're not going to exist. We're going to get sold off in pieces.
Hmm.
So I went
Makes
in, I
perfect
spent
sense.
2 days, with them, with the leadership. So it was the 2 C-suite and then their direct report. So there's 8 people. We spent 2 full days together. It was amazing what was pulled out. And these are people who, they liked each other just fine. They didn't know each other that well at all because they didn't ask questions. And it blew my mind how many times people say, oh, I didn't know that about you. Or I didn't know that made you nervous. Or I didn't know that was a challenge for you. And I'm sitting there thinking, you guys have worked together for years. How do you not know this? And
Mhm.
what they
But it
said to me,
happens.
yeah, it does happen because we get so busy, right? And that's where I see the lazy leadership, totally unintentional, but we dive so deep into what we're trying to execute that we don't think about the people side.
Mhm.
And when I did the follow-up with the 2 leaders about a month after, they said to me, you fixed our people. And it was the
Nice.
best compliment to hear that,
For sure.
Yes.
right? Just to spend the time with them to kind of extricate that information, to give that environment that they could get to know one another and understand their priorities and who they were as human beings, which was really more in the dinner, which was really fun. But it did happen over the course of the 2 days that we were together.
We couldn't agree with you more about that. It's just right in line with what we do with BrandFace and personal branding and how important that is, like to a client. It is understanding why your value is important to them and can make their life better, and being able to articulate that. But yeah, in team settings sometimes, or in work settings, we don't always do that, right? We just,
No.
we work on Monday through Friday or whatever, and then you have a life and we have a life, and that's just the way
Right.
it is, sort of.
Right.
But it's so important to know that about each other.
Yes,
Mhm.
agree.
Yeah.
And I feel that we're getting moving faster and faster each year,
Mhm.
and we're not slowing down to do these kinds of
Yeah.
things, to get to know, and then it builds that trust. So if you come to me and say, hey, I need you to go above and beyond in this way, if that foundation of trust is there, I'm going to do it.
Mhm.
But if we don't have that trust, chances are I'll do it if I have to, but I don't really want to. Or
Right.
those kinds of, I hear that a lot of times.
No real buy-in. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. What do you think makes you unique in this space?
Yeah, well, partially is this cultural. I feel I have a really wide lens given my upbringing and cultural. It does. I look at something where I hear people are like, "Oh, that's different. That's scary." They don't use those words, but that's what they're feeling.
Right.
And for me, it's like, "Ooh, tell me more. I want to know more. I want to know more." So there's certainly that piece of it. I had a client years ago say to me, "I'm from the East Coast. I live in Colorado," and she said, "Julie will nail your ass to the wall if you don't do what you say you're going to do." And the first time she said it, I was sort of taken aback, like, oh, like I think of myself as a nice person, and I'm not going to nail anything. But really, I hold people to it, and I find that a lot of times my clients say to me, I just needed someone to listen, to truly listen, and not try to fix anything for me. So there's some clients I have who will say, stop asking me so many questions, that they don't like that. So that's probably not a good fit. But people
Right.
who appreciate kind of being nudged and pushing outside their comfort zone, because I know, and I always educate my clients that it's, we learn in that discomfort circle. But
Yeah.
if we're in that comfort zone, nothing's going to change. We're not going to learn anything. We're not going to do anything differently. So really helping people in those capacities.
Oh,
That's awesome.
absolutely. Okay, so here's a more personal question for you,
Yes.
Julie. Speaking of discomfort, we hope this won't cause you any, right?
Or
What?
maybe.
That's okay. We think you're tough enough to handle it either way. All right.
Okay, good.
What would most people be surprised to learn about Julie that they can't learn through social media?
Oh, wow. That is a good question. Let's see. I would say probably the thing that now we're putting this out there, that I have a lot of inner chatter that goes on when I am working in the venture capital, private equity space. And it all stems back to, my first job out of school. I worked at Harvard University in the development office. And my first business trip was to New York to meet with alumni. And I met with an alum who worked at a hedge fund. And I did all my preparation. I researched, I talked to people. I thought I was so good going in there. And he started talking and I couldn't understand a word he was saying. I mean, I knew the words, but when he put them together, I could not comprehend what it was. And so I know now that if I am meeting with, and I've done work with private equity, I've done work people in hedge funds, but I prepare so much more now because it's just like something that's stuck in my head that I have to be really aware. And now the whole world knows that this about me.
That's all right. They know you do your homework.
Yes,
That's
right.
what matters.
That is all that matters. Yes. And they also know you have great humility. And that is such a wonderful trait for anybody, Julie. And you have so many wonderful traits. So
all right. One final question.
Yes.
What's the next step that the audience should take to learn more about working with you?
Sure. Well, I recently, like 2 days ago, just launched my new website at julieholunga.com. I'm very excited about it. And on there, right on the homepage, is the Trusted Voice Paradigm survey. So you can take it. It takes less than 5 minutes. And it'll start the conversation for us of the gaps of where trust is missing, whether it's with your people, within the team, the leadership, your organization, and it will really help us figure out, okay, what do we need to do about this? But at the very least, take the survey and you will get the results and you'll be able to see where trust exists. And let's build on that because I'm a firm believer in working through our strengths and where are some gaps and some opportunities to maybe use where it's working and translate into other areas.
Oh, perfect.
That's awesome.
Julie, thank you so much for taking time to be with us today on Be Bold Branding. You're awesome, and we appreciate all your time.
Thank you. Thanks for this fun conversation.
Ready to change how you're seen and charge what you're worth? If you're not getting enough opportunities to meet with ideal customers or the prospects you're meeting with just aren't ideal, it's most likely your brand that's holding you back. So if you're a coach, consultant, or expert who is on the rise, you need our ultimate guide to a freedom-based brand. Download it free now at BrandFaceGuide.com.